quarantine or shelter at home, I've had an increased request for how to make sourdough bread. I had a friend even tell me that the stores are out of commercial yeast a lot of places. I haven't noticed that myself, but and so I have noticed an increase in requests for how to make sourdough. So I thought I'd start by doing some videos. And this first one is just going to take us through what are the things that you need in order to get started. Like, what tools do you need? What do you need to have on hand before you can start? And the first thing you need is a sourdough starter, which is just flour and water that you mix together, and over the course of a week or two it develops into active yeast that you refresh every day with new flour and water and throw some out before you refresh it, and then you use it, and that is what you add to your dough in order to act as the yeast. It's your starter or your leaven. I will do another video hopefully that explains how to get started on this, but that's essential. Other things that are essential, of course, flour. Unbleached all-purpose flour works just fine. You could use bread flour if you want. I also use some wheat flour for a country loaf of sourdough. A little bit of wheat in there is good. It also good to use some wheat in your starter. You need salt. You also need water. So any old salt will do for the most part. A kitchen scale is very important. You need to have a kitchen scale in order to make sourdough with any sort of consistent results. You also need a large mixing bowl. This is the one I use a lot. It's got some dough in it right now. This will be 2 loaves later today. And then, so you mix your dough up in there, and after you're done with that and you've gone through the process and you've shaped your 2 loaves, then they're gonna go into bowls like this, shaping bowls. I've actually got 4 in different sizes of the bamboo variety, but that is not essential. You do not need to go out and buy bowls like this. You can see these aren't even lined. I just use tea towels to line them. You could use a bowl like this or a smaller stainless steel bowl, and you just line it with a tea towel before you put your dough in, your shaped loaf in, and then and that's all before it's baked. So a couple bowls are necessary, some tea towels. This is rice flour. This is not essential, but it is helpful. You're going to use the rice flour in the liner or the tea towels to keep them from sticking. And it also helps if you're wanting to make any designs on your loaf. You're gonna need rice flour, which if you've seen pictures of that. Parchment paper is a must. This is what you flip your dough out. So let's pretend I had dough in here. I would get a piece of parchment and I would flip it out onto the parchment upside down, and that would be the top of the loaf. You really need this. You actually bake it on the parchment. So you pick the piece of parchment up, then you put it into either a cast iron or stainless steel, or if you have a, oh, what's the word? Those other Dutch ovens with a lid. Any Dutch oven with a lid or cast iron with a lid will work to bake your sourdough in. I skipped over this. This is not essential. This is an extra, but if you want to start making designs on your loaves eventually, you need a bread lawn, which is just a razor blade with a handle. You can buy a really cheap one on Amazon, or you can just buy a razor blade and you don't need the handle and just use the little razor blade. I've done that too. You need an oven that heats up to 500 degrees. And lastly, a bread knife. I would call this essential. It doesn't need to be a nice one, but you won't be able to cut your crusty loaf if you don't have a knife, a good knife. So yes, so those are the things you need to get started. Hope that's helpful.